Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So in this video I'm going to have a look at the big blockchain game report for Q2 2024 which we've just released. So Q2 is the period the 1st of April to the 30th of June for 2024. This is the second report we did that we've done one for Q1 as well. So also we're looking at some of the trends for the first half of the year of 2024, so the 1st of January to the 30th of June. Okay, some of the headline sort of data from the quarter. So Q1 was very good for many metrics, notably the price of gaming tokens. Q2 saw a very strong reversal of those positive trends. So every gaming token that we tracked that had been live before 2024 experienced a price decline. 24 game tokens have been launched, were launched in 2024 in the first 6 months. Only 5 of those have risen in value during the first Q1 and Q2. Value of investments dropped again. And the most popular blockchain game, Pixels, also had a large fall in its daily active unique wallet count when it released Chapter 2. So these are all things that we'll look at. As I say, a difficult quarter, really, in terms of many of these metrics. And I guess what's also interesting is that this was not a quarter that was necessarily bad for crypto. So it wasn't like Bitcoin and ETH prices went down. They're sort of still up, volatile, so they go up and down all the time. But in general, you would say crypto's had a good 2024 so far. But we have seen gaming as a sector in particular hit. So only 4 tokens of the sort of what I consider the sort of the top tokens. So normally I look at the market capitalization of blockchain game tokens, and normally take the top 20 or the top 200 gaming tokens in the top 200 crypto or top 300. Only 4 tokens were up on the were up during the first 6 months of 2024. So that's the Ronin Ron token, Superverse Super token, Mythos Myth token, and Yield Guild Gaming YGG token. So basically everything was sort of down. So we can show this on this graph. So this is looking at the first 6 months of the year. So we can see here just those 4 tokens rose in value, and some of the tokens that we talk about the most, the higher market cap ones, down fairly substantially, like Sand down over 40%, Immutable down over 20%, Axie Infinity token down over 30%, Ape token down 40%. So that is clearly not a good metric. If we look at what's happened in sort of Q1 and Q2, most of these tokens actually went up in Q1, some of them quite substantially. So the YGG token in particular was up over 200%. But during Q2 it was down over 50%. So the only reason that those 4 tokens, Ron, Super, Mythos, Myth and YGG, were up over the 6-month period was they rose a lot in the first 3 months, and then they dropped in the next 3 months, but didn't drop enough to sort of take them into negative territory. So that's sort of been really, it has really been a sort of a game of 2 halves, so to speak. That sort of everything, not everything went up in Q1, but most things went up, and some of them went up sort of quite heavily in Q1. Quite a lot of tokens up over 100% in Q1, but then quite a lot of tokens going down. So in fact, across these sort of the top 300 tokens in the top 300 cryptos that were gaming tokens, in Q1 the average was up 65%, and in Q2 the average was down 54%. So that's quite a strong change of sentiment. And I think the reason for that happening is we saw a lot of new tokens launching, and I think developers either was a combination, I think, of being greedy, desperate, or not really knowing what they were doing. You can sort of choose which ones you think. But in the first 6 months of 2024, 42 gaming tokens were launched. It's been more than that now because more have launched since in July. But 42 anyway that I was tracking, and only 5 of those saw their price go up from when sort of the first price when they were being tracked on CoinGecko. So that's a lot of tokens. 37 tokens have launched and their price has gone down. So that's sort of where I think the greediness comes in, that developers were, because the first quarter was good and token prices were going up, everyone thought this is the time to launch our token, so everyone launched their token. There are a lot of not very good projects launching tokens, and so the prices of those went down, and then that generally, I think, had a knock-on effect and meant the price of most of the tokens that launched in 2024 then had sort of downward negative pressure. So obviously not all of them, 5 of them are up. I guess the sort of really interesting one that I've sort of particularly been following is Pirate Nation, the pirate token that's been doing particularly well. And I would say they're a team who sort of know what they're doing. Not that it means the token price is going to go up, but yeah, it's been pretty difficult. And the average price of a token that launched in 2024 has been down 41%. So that's obviously also burnt a lot of retail crypto investors. So people who got excited about tokens coming out, bought it when it went live, and then saw the price go down. So obviously that means they sort of, obviously run out of money and don't want to be doing that again. And that's sort of the partly accounts for the loss of sentiment, I think, around tokens. So if we look on investment trends, again, this very much follows on from what we've mentioned in terms of people launching tokens. So very much the case that in 2024 most of the investment was happening around people launching tokens. So this was either sort of crypto token funds or sort of influencers or just retail people getting into pre-sales for tokens, hoping those tokens going to go up in value, and then sort of selling them quickly. So normally you don't if you get into a token pre-sale, you're not allowed to sell it all on day one, but normally there's a percentage, maybe 25%, maybe 30% of the tokens that you buy in a pre-sale you can sell straight away. So people are obviously hoping the price goes up enough. Obviously you're getting the token at a cheaper value, and people are hoping the price goes up enough that even selling 30% of them means you can make a profit. And that worked for a bit in Q1, but then it sort of didn't work at all, and now basically that model has broken, which we might think is a good thing. So here, looking at the graph, if we look at the number of investments, 2024 was actually pretty big. So you would say, it's certainly a lot better than 2021, and in Q2 better than 2023. So quite a lot of sort of investment deals announced. Quite a lot of people launching tokens, which we also include in these numbers. So we really sort of see that activity. And really for the whole of 2024, we've seen at least 20 deals a month, over 30 deals in March. So that's much stronger than what was happening in 2023. So for the total first 6 months of 2024, I was tracking 153 deals, so it's up 35% compared to the same period in 2023. But that's the number of deals that have just been announced. So that's sort of a bit meaningless. And because these deals were mainly, say, being funded by sort of smaller funds, they weren't seeing traditional game VCs or traditional tech VCs or traditional crypto VCs putting large amounts of money in. Then if we look at the value of these deals, very different picture. So the value of investments into the blockchain game sector in Q2 was $296 million, so just under $300 million, and that compared to $324 million in Q1. So even compared to Q1, Q2 was down, not a lot, but down from that, and you can sort of see that 2023 was pretty weak, and 2024 is not really even in the good sort of first few months of the year has not really seen large sums of money. So in March we had over $200 million invested in the sector. but really not anything substantial changing there. So for the first half year of 2024, we've seen $620 million, and that's down 29% compared to the first half of 2023, where the total was 874 million. That's actually down quite a lot, really. It's almost down a third. Also quickly worth having a look at what's been happening with some in terms of sort of on-chain activity. Because, as I say, this is on-chain activity of blockchain games is only one measure, and you have to treat it a little bit carefully, as we see in this quarter. So the big news in 2024 has been the rise of Pixels, the sort of browser-based social RPG on the Ronin blockchain. It peaked at over 1 million daily active unique wallets in May, but then in June it did a big update called Chapter 2, which changed the game's reward system, and that broke that broke the bots, as they say. So when we see these very successful blockchain games, then often we know with every blockchain game there's some level of bots in there. We just don't know, is it 10%, is it 50%, is it 95%? We don't know. And some games, you could argue, have been designed to allow people to play bots. So it's not necessarily the bots themselves are a problem, but they obviously can be. And in general, game developers want to reduce the level of bots, or at least reduce the level of rewards in the game that go to bots. So this is what this Chapter 2 was doing. They realised they had a lot of bots in the game, and they've changed it so more committed players get more of the rewards. So we can see sort of what happened. As I say, in May it got over to 100 million daily active unique wallets. It released this Chapter 2 update, and it actually dropped in a couple of days, dropped down to 250,000 daily active unique wallets. They lost 69% of the audience in a couple of days. It's gone up since then. We assume that's people working, resetting their bots and working out. Obviously, when you have a bot, you have to tell it what to do, and when that changes, you have to spend time telling the bot what to do differently. But we did sort of get this basic rule of thumb that 2/3 of the wallets playing Pixels were bots. I mean, that's not actually that unusual. So if you look back historically at some of the other big blockchain games, Splinterlands had a similar thing where it dropped 68% in the middle of 2022 when it did a similar reward change. Alien Worlds has had several drops, but had a 43% drop in 2023 as well when it made some changes and tried to do some anti-botting stuff. So in a sense, this is part of a trend, but equally it does sort of go to show that you have to be a little bit careful with some of this data. And obviously you'd imagine with AI coming in future, better AI, then we're going to see more of this sort of stuff. And this is inherent to blockchain games. Obviously, if you can, if these are financial systems to some degree that people can extract value from, then obviously people are going to want to do that in the simplest way possible without playing the games themselves, but getting other computers to play it. Just a note here, we looked at some other games. There's been a lot going on with sort of Telegram. So Telegram messaging service, it has its own blockchain called Ton. And we've seen a lot of what we call or what is called tap to earn games. So these are effectively hyper casual games where you literally just sort of tap on the screen. So they're not in any way sort of sophisticated games, but they are a way in which you can basically sort of create large viral sort of audiences, or you can create quite large audiences sort of virally by doing referral codes and a lot of that sort of social media leveraged growth. And because Telegram is actually sort of fundamentally is natively designed for bots, so if you use Telegram, there's loads of bots in. That's how the system sort of works. People create bots in terms of how their channels work. So no surprise that we're seeing games like Hamster Combat, which says it's got 250 million users. Clearly, at that level, we'd say probably 99% of those are bots. And to some degree, we see that there's a game called Catizen as well, which is they've claimed I think up to 20 million users. But if you look at the on-chain data, there's about 100,000 daily active unique wallets. So it really is a factor of sort of 1% of the claimed amount of players that are actually doing on-chain stuff, and even some of those on-chain activities will be bots rather than individuals. So not to say again there's anything wrong with that, but just to sort of bear that in mind. When the numbers seem to be true, then the numbers are telling us something. You have to be sort of careful what you are sort of comparing. Final thing to look at is just a more what we call ecosystem view, and that's coming from the Big Blockchain Game List. So that's where we it's an open Google Doc where we sort of track new blockchain games and particularly what blockchains they're on, and try and get some idea of sort of trends in terms of are more games being announced and more games being cancelled, what blockchains are they sort of going towards. So during Q2 we added 157 new titles to the list. Some of the bigger ones there were Pudgy Penguins game that Mythical is doing. Planet Mojo has its Endless Runner called Go Mojo. Cambrian Duel Arena, fully on-chain PvP game. Baby Shark Universe. There's a whole bunch of sort of games, most of them not particularly well known. So we added 157, and we've added 276 new games in the first 6 months of 2024. So that's quite a lot. Most of those, or the biggest single chain those were announced for, was Immutable. That had 16% of the games. Although most of the game, a larger category was multi-chain. So that's games that are using more than one blockchain, which is sort of been a big trend. And then as new games are added, obviously new games are discontinued as well. So there's many different reasons. Developer may run out of money. They may just decide they don't want to make that game. Lots of different reasons for that to happen. And so in Q2 we saw 104 discontinued games compared to 60 in 2021. Obviously that number 164 in the first half of 2024 is smaller than the new 276 new games. So overall the number of games that we track on the list is up. So now 994 games, up from 953 games at the end of 2020, at the end of Q1. And at the start of 2024 we were tracking under 900 games. So we still see the quarter wasn't particularly good in terms of some of those metrics, but there's still more games being announced. And if we sort of look, the other thing to sort of look at is sort of what type of blockchain. So there's what we call EVM chains, which is basically Ethereum-based chains. That's things like Immutable, Polygon, Ethereum, Arbitrum, BNB. So those are sort of all compatible amongst themselves to some degree. And then we have the non-EVM compatible game blockchains, although some of those are sort of trying to add EVM compatibility. That's stuff like Solana, Ton, Flow, Sui. And really over the last couple of years, we've really seen the focus of the whole industry been totally on EVM chains. So 2022, we saw a lot of stuff around Solana when Solana first sort of had a lot of interest in it, and the price went up a lot. But generally, we don't see that many games being announced for things like Solana or Flow or Sui. Ton is a little bit different because it's going through this big sort of expansionary phase, and lots of these sort of very simple tap games are being added. So makes it a bit tricky to track that. But in general, we're seeing most of the stuff going to EVM chains. Immutable, as they always are telling us, have loads of games signed up, and that's sort of really where we're going to see most of the activity, as well as obviously some of the L2s like Arbitrum, and there's obviously other things like sort of Ronin and Oasis, which are focused on gaming, but they're just don't focus so much on scale. There is always this idea with, is it better to have lots of blockchain games on your blockchain, or is it better to have a few sort of better high volume games? So that's a sort of another ongoing trend that we really see, I guess, between Ronin, which has a few games, but they tend to be more selected because it's a permission chain at the moment, whereas Immutable tends to just go, let's really focus on getting loads and loads of games in, and not worry too much about a sort of quality bar from that point of view. So we'll see how that continues throughout the rest of 2024. Thanks for watching the video. See you again soon.